These are the top 5 things that I can't stand about Salt Lake City. Some of these might be things you also don't like, and some of these things you might not mind at all. But these are the 5 things that a lot of people, including myself, can't stand when it comes to living in Salt Lake City. So if these are things that are absolutely no-goes for you, if you're considering moving or relocating to Salt Lake City, just keep this in mind while you're looking at different markets. The first is the air quality. Now, you might think that the Mountain West is fresh, clean air, 24/7, year-round, totally different than New York City or other major metro markets, Southern California. Of course, other countries have a lot worse air pollution than we do, but the air quality in Salt Lake gets particularly sketchy around wintertime because we have this temperature inversion, and all of that pollution that the city produces in the valley gets trapped and is at the ground level that people breathe. Now, of course, there's certain areas where it doesn't affect you as much, especially if you're higher elevation, but for the majority of the valley, sometimes you can experience these winter temperature inversions where all that pollution gets trapped in the valley. Let me show you a website that you can actually look at and see what the day-to-day air quality is if this is something that's interesting to you. So right now I'm looking at the Utah Department of Environmental Quality. This is a government website that talks about the Salt Lake County, particularly what I'm looking at right now, the Salt Lake County current conditions. So this gives you a snapshot day to day and throughout the day. It looks like it's updated every hour of what the current air quality looks like. So they're looking at all these different factors, including ozone, and they have all these different air quality indexes that grades it on a scale from good all the way to hazardous and everything in between. So maybe a good resource and website to look at if you're concerned about air quality in your everyday living, especially if you have asthma or if you have health conditions where air quality is a really big deal. I would definitely consider this. Now I'm gonna hop over to the map and show you what I mean. So in the valley, you know, most of this is sort of similar elevation, but for people that live more what's considered on the East Bench, so the far east side of the valley, places like Olympus Cove or St. Mary's, or all the way down here, there's a neighborhood called Suncrest that sits here kind of at the peak of the mountains here on the south side of Draper. If you're those higher elevations, of course you won't be affected as much when it comes to the temperature inversion as the rest of the valley where all of that pollution kind of gets settled. The number 2 thing that a lot of people are very annoyed with when it comes to living in Salt Lake City is the lack of nightlife or the alcohol and liquor restrictions. So Salt Lake City is historically a more conservative area, and they have very, very tight, strict laws when it comes to liquor and alcohol. For example, if you were to go to the grocery store and you wanted to buy alcohol, the most you're gonna find is a 5% BAV. So that's like your typical beer. You're not gonna be able to find rum or whiskey or some of those hard liquors or even wine. You can't just walk into a grocery store and buy that. You have to go to a state store. Here's where this gets even more annoying. If you want to buy alcohol, you have to go to a state store, and those state stores have very specific hours. So good luck trying to buy alcohol on a Sunday. You kind of have to plan ahead if you have a family gathering or a social event where you want to go buy liquor. You have to buy it when the store is actually open, and sometimes you kind of have to go out of your way. There's really only a handful of state stores. That means you might have to drive 10 to 15 minutes just to go to one of these state stores to buy alcohol. So just how hard is it to find liquor stores? Well, if you look here on the map, you can see this is the entire Salt Lake City Valley, and there's maybe a dozen or so spread throughout all of the area. So, you know, if you live in certain parts of Salt Lake City, you might be driving a good amount just to go to the store to buy liquor. The second half of that conversation is also the lack of nightlife. Of course, if you want to go out to the bars or have an outing with your friends, maybe a bachelor or bachelorette party, there's really only one place in all of Salt Lake City that caters to that type of environment and that type of crowd, and that's really downtown. And downtown is actually relatively small compared to most major metro areas. Salt Lake City isn't a massive, sprawling downtown area. It's actually relatively small, and that's the only place you're gonna be able to go to really find more than just a sports bar that serves beer. If you want to go to different outings where they serve alcohol, you're kind of stuck to just the downtown area. Number 3 on the list is the traffic. Of course, everyone complains about the traffic in their city, that these people don't know how to drive. Luckily in Salt Lake City, because we get pretty decent winters, people know how to drive in the snow, but they're the real issue is the traffic because of the lack of infrastructure. Salt Lake City has grown so quickly and so rapidly in recent years. The infrastructure hasn't quite been on par with the population growth, is the best way to think about it. There's a few areas in particular that drive me absolutely crazy that you absolutely do not want to get stuck in during rush hour. One in particular is the Pioneer Crossing or 2100. So if you're driving down Highway 15, which again is really the only corridor north and south for the most part, is the main freeway, and right off of Highway 15, once you cross from Salt Lake County into Utah County, you have traffic from Lehigh, American Fork, Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain. All of those areas, those intersections all combine at this one area, and 2100 in particular is this road that runs east and west that gets backed up, it seems like for miles during rush hour, because everyone is trying to come home from work off of Highway 15, and there's only one main road that goes out to the west for all those people that live in Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, and so forth. But in general, what you'll notice is that there isn't very many main roads or freeways that run east and west through the valley. So of course we have Highway 15, you have Bangerter Highway that runs all the way through Salt Lake Valley, but there isn't very many freeways that take you from east to west or west to east. Of course we do have Highway 215 right here, but even that doesn't go all the way to the west out near West Jordan and Kearns. And so when you're trying to drive from one side of the valley to the other, you're taking roads that aren't necessarily meant for, 55 to 60 miles an hour. You're gonna hit a lot more street lights and the traffic gets way worse during rush hour. Number 4 on the list, we're gonna talk about the weather. Now, I love that Utah has 4 distinct seasons. We have a summer, we have a fall, a winter, and a spring. And each one truly is its own weather pattern. Unlike Southern California, which is beautiful, but you're never gonna really see a fall or a spring. So if you like that aspect of it, Salt Lake City might be a great place to live. However, if you really don't like snow, I got tough news for you. It snows in Utah every single year, some years worse than others. For example, last year in 2023, we had a record amount of snow, which was awesome for the ski resorts and people that wanted to travel to Salt Lake City to experience those ski resorts and vacation here. But for those of us that live here day to day, it was very tough. Now, this winter hasn't been nearly as bad, but on average, you can expect that you're going to get several inches of snow every year. That means shoveling your driveway, either by hand. If you don't have a snowplow, it means traffic is going to be a little bit slower, and it means your car is going to get really dirty. That's why everyone here has like car wash memberships, because the snow in the wintertime and the road conditions make your vehicle very, very dirty very quickly. So people are constantly having to get their cars washed. The 5th thing you might not like about living in Salt Lake City, and this one's real estate related, it's the median sales price of homes. Salt Lake City is far more expensive than the national average. In fact, I'll show you here recent stats as of the time of this recording. Even right now, and we're not even in the peak of the market in this time of year in the early spring, the average sold price in Salt Lake County was $600,000. That is significantly higher than the national average, which is closer to $400,000 to $425,000. So we are several $100,000 higher than the average sold price across the country. What makes that difficult for a lot of people is, of course, the house affordability. So high interest rates plus high home prices equals a very high mortgage payment, and that's incredibly difficult for a lot of people. Coupled with that, Salt Lake City is surrounded by mountains. We have a massive lake to the north, a massive lake to the south, so we're sort of landlocked, which means there's limited inventory and limited land availability for developers and builders and contractors to create more supply. So you have limited supply, a ton of people moving here. That just keeps pushing prices higher and higher and higher, which is what the trend has been over the last several years. So there you have it. Those are the 5 reasons why people might not want to move or relocate to Salt Lake City. If one of those 5 factors is a deal breaker for you, then Utah and Salt Lake City might not be the best option. Let's ask the public how they feel about Salt Lake City. Darren, what is your least favorite thing about living in Salt Lake City?
Probably the lack of sports arenas. I would really like it if there was an NFL team or a hockey team. I love the Jazz, so a little more hype on the sports arenas. I would love that about Salt Lake, and that's what I don't like, is they don't have enough.
I would say the air quality. You can't really see the mountain view, gets blocked, so that would definitely be high up on the list.
It definitely has to be the traffic, especially in the afternoon, trying to get from the office to home. It takes me like an hour. When there's no traffic, it takes me like 30 minutes. So so traffic has to be the worst thing.
See, I told you the traffic is horrible.
I would say the lack of culture. It was something that was really hard for us to break through. It's substantially definitely getting a lot better, but I think that was probably one of my least favorite things about Salt Lake City for a while.
Lack of history.
Like American history?
Yes. I'm like, as you know, I'm minutes from Mount Vernon, Virginia.
Probably how touristy the ski areas have gotten. It's just made it a pain in the butt to get up to the mountain. It's made it a pain in the butt to ski on the mountain, having to weave and dodge everybody. So that's probably, that's my least favorite part.
Hopefully this video was interesting to you. If you have questions about the Salt Lake City market, or if you're considering moving here, reach out to me and my team. Our contact information is in the description below. You can call, text us, shoot us an email, hop on a Zoom call. We'd love to help answer your questions about the Salt Lake City market. Thanks for hanging out with me.